Hello and welcome to a special interview edition of Adult Music here today with drummer and composer Tony Addison. Tony, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here. Appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, our pleasure. So we came across Tony's new recording, Relentless Pursuit, came out September 8th on Odradek, and we featured it a few episodes ago, episode 132, Debuts and Discoveries. And we found it really exciting and really thrilling recording. And we were happy to talk about the music. And now we've got a chance to talk to Tony himself. So I guess to get going, you're from D.C., right? Born and raised?
Born and raised in Washington, D.C., absolutely.
Tell us about how you got into music. Did you have a musical family life? Were you into it from a young age? What got you started on this path?
Okay, well, yes, I do have a musical family. In fact, my father was a guitarist. He played electric and acoustic guitar. He really liked playing blues and R&B and, all of those type of styles. So, yeah, he was always in the house. My sister was a flutist.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she played flute. And my father played a lot of Motown and all of those types of stuff. So, yeah, music was in the house. But it's kind of funny because music was there. It flowed. Everybody's singing. I'm singing, Frank's singing, my brother Frank, everybody's singing and playing. But it really wasn't my thing at that time. I just didn't really get into the music thing, especially playing guitar. My father used to teach us chords and how to structure things, and I just wasn't into that. So I leaned more towards the sports.
Right.
I was a sports guy. I started being an amateur boxer at an early age. And that all came about actually because I used to get bullied in school. Coming up, and, I was a pretty good looking little kid, had my big fro, and back then, it was about the Jackson 5 and, having the big fro and all of this stuff. So, everybody looked, yeah, Michael Jackson. Well, no. So anyway, it's like, I started to get bullied and picked on. So one day in this class, a friend of mine came and said, Tony, meet me after school. I want to take you somewhere. And he took me to the gym. Took me to the boxing gym, and I fell in love with the sport. It made me a different person. And even to this day, I have a gym downstairs in my house, and I have the boxing gloves and the heavy bag and the speed bag and things like that. So I still utilize all of those things that I was taught back in the day when I was boxing to keep myself in condition and my mind in condition and things of that nature. So, I didn't really get into the music thing at first. I didn't really. However, I enjoy entertaining. I like to make people smile. I like to make people happy. I was one of those kids that was always in the school plays, always on stage, whether it was dancing or acting or singing, things of that nature. So I understood that I did have that side of me. But as far as playing the drums, it started on pots and pans in the kitchen.
So you just started doing it naturally?
Yeah, just sitting on the floor. Mm-hmm. My mom used to tell me I'd sit on the floor and then she in there cooking or doing whatever. And, I would grab a couple of spoons and I started banging. Uh-huh. God bless them. They took the noise and, that's what happened. And
beginning of a brilliant career.
Well, I wouldn't know about brilliant, but
it's on its way.
So, eventually time went by, time went through, and we moving and we grooving. And once I really understood, my mom's, mm-hmm. She used to have these listening sessions because my mom's wasn't a musician, but she listened to all different styles of music. She would have us sit down, and me and Frankie, my brother, and we would sit down and she would have us listen to Miles Davis, John Coltrane, Cannonball Adderley, and we called these listening sessions. Now, I didn't quite understand what was going on. However, I would gravitate to what the drummer was doing. That was the thing that always caught my ear. So, as time went by, it just was a thing with me. I just really enjoyed listening to the drummer. My brothers, they listening to, their style of music. My sister listened to her style of music, whether it was R&B, funk, things like that. But I always found myself listening to what the drummer was doing. So I always had that rhythm thing inside of me that, I always enjoyed to listen to. So, that's kind of how things got started, but I still really wasn't into it. I still was doing my thing. I still was into sports and, played soccer in high school and junior high school and all of that type of stuff. And eventually, I really actually didn't stop playing drums until I was maybe 17, 18 years old, almost out of high school. but I knew I had the rhythm. I knew I had a certain thing happening, but it wasn't jazz, even though my mother had us listening to jazz. And, I started listening to, all of these different drummers. I really didn't understand it. I really didn't know what was going on. But it was later on in life, I would realize that all of that stuff would play a very important part of what I'm doing now, in hindsight. So coming up as a teenager, I was more into rap, hip hop. The thing that we do here in D.C. was go-go.
Right, I remember that.
I could live in D.C. and not know go-go or not go to the go-go's and the parties and stuff like that. So, that was my thing, go-go and jazz. Not jazz, but go-go.
So this is the 1980s we're talking about. Yeah, okay.
80, leading to the 90s. It was all about going to the CDs all these guys play. Now, Frankie, on the other hand, my brother, he's picked up the saxophone in junior high school. So he was already kind of doing his thing and learning an instrument. So he was already playing before I even thought about if this is what I really wanted to do, because I didn't really know.
Mm-hmm.
So time went by, time elapsed, and it came to a point where, okay, Frank, hey, Tone, we need a drummer for our band. What'd you think? Me at that age, I think I can do anything. Sure, I do. So, I started dipping and dabbing a little bit. But at the time, when I did kind of get into it, I was playing go-go.
Right.
You couldn't tell me I wasn't going to be a go-go drummer. Jazz, I had no interest at all in that music. Frank was saying, man, you got to swing, man. Let's swing, man. I'm like, swing? I want to play some backbeat funk stuff. In a few years, I got introduced to this summer jazz program called Let 'em Play. And Let 'em Play it was an organization designed for young musicians or upcoming musicians or people who may have thought they was interested in music to learn how to play an instrument and get paid for it. I'm like, wow, this is what's happening. So Frankie and actually Dave Marsh was already in Let 'em Play a couple of years before I decided to give it a shot, give it a go. And, they always joke about me how raw I was when I first entered Let 'em Play. I didn't really know any swing or anything like that. But that organization really, really changed my perspective of what this music is all about. Not just the part about playing, but the part of understanding the history of the music, understanding all of the contributions and all of the things that other musicians had to go through at that time. So they did not only teach you how to play an instrument, but they also taught you the history of the music, which gave me an even more broader understanding to what I was about to experience or what I had been experiencing at the time. So Let 'em Play was a very big part of my growth in the jazz scene. We had a trumpet player, Webster English Young, we called him Lil Diz, and he used to play with Train for a while. So Diz used to always tell me, Tony, yeah, man, you got this feel, man. You got this feel thing happening, man. So once you learn how to play and understand this music, man, you're going to be okay because you'll feel. And I wasn't quite getting it, the feel. But now I understand what he meant when he said the feel. You can have a lot of chops, you can have a lot of this, you can have a lot of that, but the feel is what people want to hear. And you always hear people say, man, your feel, you make it feel good. And I said, whoa, okay. So after a while, we playing, I'm getting it in, I'm understanding, I'm learning, I'm getting my chops and everything like that. One thing led to another, and I told my moms I really want to do this. And she said, okay. And she went out and bought me my very first drum set at Chuck Levis in Silver Spring. She got me a 5-piece Tama, all white. And I just started playing, started learning. Then that's when I ventured into the Washington School of Music. And that's when I first started taking my first drum lessons and really understanding the process of learning how to play drums. A great friend of mine, he's even a friend of the day, Odradek Robinson, was my very first drum instructor. And he taught me the fundamentals of drums and certain beats and certain rhythms and things of that nature and got me started. And Let 'em Play, man, we went and we playing this jazz and I'm learning all of this stuff and learning all this different music and understanding how things go. And, it just opened up a whole nother bag of worms for me. It just made me really, really want to do this. And honestly, me and Frankie and a few other guys, man, we used to stay in the house, man, and we would practice and study and practice and study. I mean, it would be an all night thing every single night. And the great thing about Let 'Em Play, besides the music, was that it kept me off the streets. It kept me in a safe environment where otherwise I may have been out there doing who knows what or with who knows who. It gave me something to do. It gave me something positive that I can lean on where I may have been out in the streets doing who knows what otherwise. But Let 'Em Play was a great organization that allowed us to really, really keep ourselves in a safe environment and learn an instrument and learn how to play. So I give a lot of credit to Let 'Em Play with my development. I thank them for that.
I want to go back to your mother for a second. You said that she played jazz in the house, and I'm just curious, what did she listen to? What was the first jazz that you really heard?
Man, she would play a lot of John Coltrane.
Okay.
She loved Cannonball Adderley.
Mm-hmm.
So she played a lot of his music and a lot of Herbie Hancock.
Right.
So these are the things we were listening to now. And she would actually say, sit down. I don't know, maybe it was partly because she wanted to keep us out of mischief because we was stop running around the house. But at the same time, she did give us that platform to listen to the music and kind of get it in our system, whether we realized it or not at the time. Uh-huh. And as years went by and I look back at it, I'm like, wow, that was something that, I look back on and it really helped me. It opened my ears. It made me to understand what I was listening to, who I was listening to. Now I had to find out the why. Mm-hmm. Why am I listening to this? What is this going to do for me as far as becoming a musician? So when we was probably go listen to, practice certain songs, I would go back and, I heard this song before. Oh, I understand this. Oh, yeah, I've heard that. I've heard this. Okay. Now it's starting to all make sense. And, my mom, she loved all styles of music. She would play some Johnny Cash sometimes. She would play some Herbie Mann. She would play some Elton John. Of course, she would get into the, all of the Motown, things like that. But she specifically always sat us down to listen to jazz.
Yeah.
So it was a good thing that she did, and I appreciate her for doing that.
Once you decided that, jazz was going to be the road of music you're going on, who were the drummers that had the biggest influence on you? Who has formed your style as someone you copied maybe or tried to emulate when you were developing?
That's a great question, and I love that word, emulate, not imitate, but emulate. Max Roach was my favorite. He was the first drummer that I actually really started focusing on and listening to his rhythmic approach and the way that he phrased his drumming and his solos and things of that nature. So I studied Max, and still to the day, I go listen to Max when I feel like, okay, I need to go back to my roots and check some things out. Because sometimes you can get so far into the music till you have to go back and start over again. So I will always lean back on Max. In fact, a lot of the licks that I hit in the CD, Relentless Pursuit, were Max licks that I've studied. I mean, me and Frankie, man, we would sit up in the room and day after day, night after night, playing the records over and over and over and over. And I would just play them, and then I go back on the drums and try to play it. And then I listen, and I go back on the drums and try to play it. So Max, I used to listen to Max, for his rhythmic approach. Now, when I got introduced to Blakey, I started to notice his power and his thunder. And I wanted that. And I'm like, man, that's what's up, that thunder, man, that power. So I started to study Blakey for his power and his thunder and the way that he, approaches shuffles and things of that nature. So it was from Max to Blakey. And a friend of mine's, late Ron Sutton Jr., saxophone player, who was also in the Let 'Em Play program, he said, Tony, listen to some Philly Joe Jones. So I started studying Philly, and that's when the rudimental approach started to take effect. And I listened to all of the rudiment things, he doing his flams and his paradiddle-diddles and his double strokes and all of the things how he was just maneuvering all over the drum set with all of these different rudiments. And when I wanted to practice rudimentals, I would go to Philly. When I wanted to practice power, I would go to Blakey. And when I wanted to practice just the other stuff, I would go to Max. Now, if I want to practice some funk stuff, I go to Dennis Chambers because, to me, he's the funk master. The pocket thing is what's up. was happening. So I go to Dennis, and then may go to Dave Wecko if I want to listen to the Latin thing, because the way he's so fluent around the drums and he have this touch, I really enjoy listening to him. So I listen to different drummers for different reasons.
Sure.
It depends on what I want to study at that particular time during my time when I'm practicing and working on my chops. So those are the guys that I listen to the most. It's plenty more guys I listen to, of course. Kind of funny to try to name them all right now. But yeah, those are the main ones. Max, Blakey, Philly Joe, and the rest of the cats. So,
well, that's a good base to build any sort of drumming style out of all the big names. Yeah.
Oh, and let me not forget my boy, RP Ralph Peterson, the late Ralph Peterson, who was one of my private drum instructors for many, many years and was also a really great friend of mine who I studied with privately before he passed away, was a tremendous attribute to my playing. He took me to a whole nother way of thinking, a whole nother way of playing, just a whole completely different approach where it wasn't just the bebop. It was just the bebop, the Latin, the fusion, the funk, the whole 9 yards. And of course, when you listen, I'm listening to Jeff Tane Watts and all the things that he does. Jeff is another one of my favorites. So, Chris Coleman is another funky drummer that I listen to. So I can go on. And if I call guys out as we have this interview, because there's other drummers that come to mind. But for the most part, those are the other guys, a lot of the guys that I listen to and study yet to this day. So probably after this interview, when I go to practice, I'm going to listen to one of those guys before I get started.
So I have to ask you about the gospel influence, because your earlier record was a pure gospel recording. And, coming into jazz, there's not a lot of players. I guess I think of mainly piano players. There's Cyrus Chestnut, Eric Reed, who come from a gospel background, and they bring that into jazz, and they do some gospel tunes on their jazz recordings. How does being a gospel drummer work out? What's the role of the drummer when you're playing gospel music, and how has that carried over into your jazz playing?
That's a great question. Well, the first thing, when I did start writing for that particular He Is Love CD, I didn't even look at it from a drummer's perspective. I looked at it more from a vocal perspective, a lyrical perspective, where the lyrics were more what I focus on versus the drumming. Mm-hmm. And when you get to a certain point in your spiritual journey, you try to find things to express how you really feel, just to express where you come from to the point where you are now. And that's what led me to, I just felt compelled to do a gospel CD. I wanted to give God his upfront, his first. So I just decided to write. So I started writing lyrics. I started writing the music to go to it. But it didn't have anything to do with my drumming. It had more to do with my life and things I've been through and things I've been going through and the places that I've been and where I am now that I wanted to express in my, my spiritual journey. So when I started to write the He Is Love CD, I just pretty much wrote how I felt, lyrically, and started putting music to it, rhythmically and harmonically and things of that nature until I started to develop a sound and develop what direction I actually wanted to go in. And when you listen to the CD, you see I have, a lot of different styles, a lot of different sounds going on, where I didn't try to strategize what I wanted to do or where I wanted to go with it. I just wanted people to know how I felt about what I was doing and why I was doing it. Now that I'm even closer to God and I even have an even better relationship, my lyrics will be even completely different to a degree because my relationship with God has grown. So my lyrics will grow and my music will grow. And the way that I approach it will be different because I'm a different person even now after 10 years or however long it's been since I did the He Is Love CD. You will hear the change, or I would say the development in my growth with the Lord that will wholly transcribe into the music that I would do next for that. But it had nothing to do with jazz. I didn't feel like, I needed to, even though people may say, well, it sounds kind of jazzy, it sounds like it got a little jazz in it, which may be true because that's what I know. And that's okay. because the whole process and the whole purpose of it was to hopefully get people closer to God, and hopefully that it will inspire them to give up whatever they need to give up and let loose and give their lives to the Lord. And that was my whole purpose of it.
Is this you singing on that album, by the way?
Well, I did sing one track on there.
I see. Okay.
I sung one track on there. I have other people on the CD that did a lot of the singing. People on the wall right here who did a lot of the singing. Now, the next project that I do, gospel project, I've learned now I can write the music that's in the keys that I can sing in, where now I can actually do more lead singing than I did on the first one. So as you grow and musically, and as you grow spiritually, you will grow in your writing where, okay, now I understand what I have to do. If I want to sing, put it in the keys that I want to sing in, that's going to make it comfortable for me. And at the same time, doesn't hinder the process of the message that I'm trying to.
Right.
Yeah, just for the listeners, the He Is Love album, it's a gospel album, came out in 2010. And we're talking about your new jazz album, which is this year. What happened in between those 2 years? What did you do?
Life happened, man. I mean, you know, get married, you have children, you get a house, you got a job, you know, you're gigging, you're playing you're serving at church. You know, life happens and things kind of get in the way, and not in a bad way, but in a great way, because, you know, I've been very fortunate and very blessed to have the family that I have and the wife that I have. Crystal's nothing but the greatest support to me throughout my whole music career, even up to this point, man. She's been great and a support to me with this Relentless Pursuit, man. She's out there and she's making T-shirts made and getting this done and getting that done and, you know, just hanging with me, man. So she's been a great support to me. So life gets in the way, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that's what made me want to do this jazz CD. And I'm like, well, I played in pretty much every club I can possibly play in the DMV. Little traveling to Philly, a little traveling to New York, a little, not much, but a little. You know, I've had the opportunity and being very fortunate to play for 3 different U.S. presidents.
Wow.
Done a lot of theater around the city. Theater is nice. I love doing theater. But I realized that I don't have a recording, not anything. You know, when I was coming up, we didn't talk about recording that much. It didn't come up. It wasn't a thing that my circle or the people that I was involved with, we didn't talk about. We talked about gigging, making money, playing here, going to that nightclub, doing this nightclub, but people didn't really talk about recording that much. So that wasn't something that was on the forefront of my agenda. However, as you get older and you realize, man, I need to leave a legacy here for my children or other young musicians. So I felt compelled that I have to put out a jazz CD. And I didn't want to put out a CD that, you know, I'm copying other people's music and I'm playing what's already been played. I wanted to play things that came from my heart, my soul, my spirit, that people can relate to me, who Tony is. So that's why I decided to write my own compositions, because who else can tell my story the way that I wanted to go but myself? So, you know, that's what I did.
Just one more thing. You mentioned you played for 3 presidents, and I'm wondering, does that mean you went to the White House?
I wish.
Well, what were the circumstances?
It was actual presidential events where the president was there, and it was for the president, but it wasn't actually White House. The 2 Bushes, both Bush, the father and son, President Bush, father and son, and also Bill Clinton. And I've done a lot of events for Barbara Bush. She is the sweetest lady you ever want to meet.
Wow.
We used to have events for border babies back in the day, and she would always call me and Frankie. We were called the Front Line back then, the Front Line Jazz Ensemble. And the Front Line would get those calls, and, you know, we would just do them, man. And so even though it wasn't at the White House, it was still a presidential event, and the president was there. We even got acknowledged a couple of times from the president. So, you know, that was pretty cool, and it was great. It was good to be able to do that.
That's fantastic, yeah.
You don't really think about it when it's being done.
Right.
Look back later at it, and you realize, wow, okay, I had the opportunity to do that. Thank you, Jesus, for giving me that opportunity.
Right.
You know, so, you know, I put that on the resume, of course, and it's more about the opportunities that this music presents itself to the young people out there. This music can put you in positions that you never thought it would. This music can take you to places that you never thought you would go. This music will have you playing for people that you never thought you would meet. It's the greatest thing ever if you just stick in there and hang in there and learn this music. Not just jazz, but we're speaking of jazz. I mean, you can do it with hip hop, of course, as you see now, and other styles of music. But when you talk about jazz, it can open doors that pretty much only God can open. So we take it. We take it.
Yeah. Let's talk about composing and get into your record. When I saw this on the new release list and I took a quick look at the description, I saw, drummer as a leader. Well, that's not so unusual, but drummer as a composer. And the whole album is composed of original material. So I thought, that's interesting. And I'm wondering, because different instrumentalists have a different approach to composing. So if you're a wind player or a vocalist, you start with the melody. Well, that's how I played. I played trumpet, and I know this melody. I get it in my head. Then I got to go to the piano and sort of figure out the harmonies. And when I looked at pop songs that were written by guitarists, they always seemed strange to me until I figured out guitar later in life. I said, he moved his finger over there and it sounded good. You know, it wouldn't be obvious on piano. And songs written by bass players are different altogether because they look from the bottom up. They're looking up and they see all these kind of harmonic pivots you can get. As a drummer, how does that fit into your composing process? And where do you start out? And where do the ideas come from? And how do you work out the structures and the melodies and harmonies of your tunes?
Again, gentlemen, that's another great question. And thanks for asking. Now, it kind of starts for me. First, I want to decide, well, for this particular project, we're going to stick with this particular project because this is my only jazz project right now. What kind of sound do I want? That's what I ask myself. What kind of sound do I want? Do I want a big sound? Do I want a small ensemble sound? Do I want, something chilled? Studying at the University of the District of Columbia under Calvin Jones, the late Calvin Jones, and having the opportunity to play in the big band there, I just fell in love with big band music. I mean, I can listen to it all the time. I enjoy listening to it, and I really enjoy playing it. So I decided I wanted big, if I'm a go big. I wanted big. I wanted a big sound. So once I established what kind of sound I wanted, then I said, well, what kind of instrumentation do I want? And I said, well, listen to Blakey and my boy R.P. Ralph Peterson and some of the things that they've done. I said, okay, I want a 3-horn harmony. I want trumpet, saxophone, and trombone. So once I established that and realized the sound that I wanted, and I like the hits of the big band, those big band hits, man. I mean, nothing like the hits of a big band and you swinging and you grooving and you pa-da-da-da, you doing those hits. That's what I wanted. So once I established the sound that I wanted, that was the first thing. Then the second thing I did, so I would come upstairs and I would practice probably, working on my chops, just the things that we do, work on our chops. So I'm upstairs working on my chops. So I might practice for a couple of hours. Then I start getting into my bag. I'm feeling good. I'm warmed up, and I start just playing and I'm thinking and I'm playing certain rudiments and I'm playing certain fields and I'm coming up da-da-da-da, but then I'm singing to myself, at the same time. So I'm humming and I'm singing and I'm playing and I'm starting to feel something. I'm starting to find a groove. Now we speak of never say never. So I'm playing and then all of a sudden I come up with ba-ba-do-bop. This is on the drums. Ba-ba-do-da. Da-da-da-da, ba-dig-a-doo-ga-ga-doo-ba. Da-da-da-da, ba-dig-a-da. I said, okay, I like that. Let me emulate a horn on that part and see how it sounds. So that's what I did. So I started to emulate a horn. Then once I learned that lick from this to that point on ba-da-doo-da, ba-dig-a-doo-ga-ga-doo-da, then I would go to the piano and I would find those notes. Ding-a-ding-ding, ding-a-ding-ding. Then I would play that down. And once I got it pretty comfortable where I knew I was in the time signature that I wanted to be, not necessarily what key I want to play it in yet. I haven't gotten to that point yet. Mm-hmm. I would set up a Pro Tools session, open up a new session, run a drum track, play that same lick down 2 or 3, 4 bars, go to the piano, play those same notes 2 or 3 bars down. Then I would listen to it and see how it sounds. I'm like, okay, all right, that works. Once I got that structure and got an idea, Then I would go from there. Now, maybe not the same day, because, you have to go with when your creative juices are flowing. So my creative juices may have flowed for just that much. And if you try to force it, then it becomes wacky. It becomes not fun. It becomes not happening. Then you get frustrated, and then you don't do it anymore. So I would do it that way. So most times I go from the drums, then I go to the piano, then I would run tracks and record however much I got down. Then if it takes another day or two when I'm thinking about it, in the process of doing whatever I'm doing, my wheels are always turning. My mind is always thinking about the next step, no matter what I'm doing. So I could be having dinner with my wife and kids, and in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, and I'm thinking, what will come next? Then once I figure that out, same process, go to the drums, go to the piano, record. And it's funny because sometimes I can be asleep and I have a dream of a melody or some music. I'm like, oh my God, I wake up, oh, that's great. I would run and grab my phone, go in the bathroom somewhere. Wife, like, what you doing? Where you going? I'm like, I got this. Go in there and hum it. Da 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 da, da. So I would, once again, if I felt like it, I would get up in the middle of the night, run upstairs to the studio, play it down, record it, and keep it moving. So a lot of things come not in that moment, but even later on, 2-3 days later, it may come, because a lot of times I may have had something and didn't record it on my phone. Oh, I remember. Then when I woke up, it's gone. So I've learned to always have my phone next to me. So whenever something comes, I can just record it right there on the spot. Johnny on the spot. Record it, take it upstairs, play it down, record it on Pro Tools, and keep moving. So that's how my approach is now. It can be, sometimes I might start on piano, fiddling around, coming up with little ideas. I watched my professor, Lake Calvin Jones at UDC, when I used to go to school for big band practice. I would come to school early because I was determined that I wanted to be the best big band drummer that I could be. So I would come to school early and sit down and watch him. And I would watch how he would compose his music. And sometimes he would play just some single notes. Then he would write it down, play some more single notes, write it down. So I took that approach. I'm like, So that's what I would do. Play some notes, write it down, play some other notes, write it down. So it comes in different ways. It's I listened to you guys on the recording when you were actually playing the CD and talking about the CD and dissecting it. And I don't know which one of you guys said it, but one of you it's kind of unorthodox, the way that he does what he does or whatever. And I'm like, that is the greatest thing ever, because you're absolutely right. That is so to the point, because I know it's unorthodox.
I'm going to get into some of that when we start listening to this, because, normally you sit down with the jazz CD and you're thinking, okay, this is AABA, 32 measures. Okay, there's a bridge here. And when I put on your recording, I was like, okay, let's go back and listen to that again.
And that's cool. I can dig that, because it is unorthodox. And I think a lot of that comes from when I used to box.
Oh, rich.
All right.
I fought kind of unorthodox, where I was a southpaw, and a southpaw means you're left-handed, but you lead with your right hand. But I was right-handed, and I led with my right hand. So it was kind of unorthodox the way that I fought, but it was effective. And the bottom line is, what works for you? What is effective, and what are you trying to do? And I find that was effective for me. Even when I used to dance on this TV show a long time ago, back in the day, Dance Connection, not to get off the subject, but I used to be a waiter at this place and this restaurant, and the guy I worked with always talking about he was a dancer and he danced on TV. And I'm like, yeah, really? He like, you want to audition? I'm like, yeah, well, bring a suit to work the next day and he going to take me to the audition. So he took me to the audition, and I made the audition, and I danced on the show for probably, I don't know how many years. And it was a great experience for me. It was just so much fun to be able to dance on television. I learned so much things about TV and the way things go behind the camera. But at the same time, it was another one of those situations where I was unorthodox, because I used to be one of those kids that would go to the pop contest and see all the guys doing the pop. And then I like to go to the places where they were having other styles of dancing. Yeah, I would pick some of that stuff up. But when it came to my style, I utilized a few of those styles, break dancing and all of that type stuff, incorporated to my own thing, where it seemed a little unorthodox because I did it my way. However, I did utilize some of the dance moves that other dancers were doing that made me who I was, because I didn't want to do exactly what they were doing. I just wanted to use some of the things they were doing to express how I felt.
Right.
And that's the same thing I do with the music. So, yes, some of it may and is and probably will continue to be a little unorthodox, but however, that's what works for me.
Well, that's what makes it interesting, too. It's on Odradek, and Odradek's a label that has been really interesting to us.
Yeah.
Because they do classical and jazz. And the first recording we got on there was the Greek piano trio, Spiral Trio. And that became one of our favorite records.
Still listening to it now.
What a discovery this is.
Yeah.
And I got to keep my eye on this label. And then we did a classical recording
of Spanish piano
music.
Yeah.
And then this year in April, we did this French octet that they do like Mingus style, real exciting stuff, the Octet La Nocturne.
Right.
And then I saw you're on there and I said, well, that's interesting because they don't put out a lot of recordings. And I know they have a really unique kind of democratic audition process for that. We didn't feature it, but I did listen to William Knowles' recording because he made a record with Mark Saltman on there. And so I'm wondering, how did you get that connection through and get things set up with Odradek?
Well, of course, me, William, Mark, we are all good friends, man. We've been knowing each other for over 30 years. We performed together on many, many, many occasions, on many, many different platforms. And they had already been accepted on the label when I was still preparing to write my music and get it recorded to be ready to be released. So they introduced me to Odradek, and I'm like, well, you know what? It's not like I have a label. It's not like I had people knocking my door down trying to get me signed or anything of that nature. In fact, I don't know anybody. I mean, that's another thing that was bothering me because I'm like, I've been in this business for a long time, and I haven't been on any recordings except for my own recordings. I haven't recorded with any other musicians, anybody. And, that's one thing Ralph Peterson told me. He said, well, look, Tony, if you want to record, write your own music and record. Don't rely on anybody else. You set your own destiny. And so that's what I decided I was going to do. Just do my own thing. So William and them introduced me to Odradek. That's how I heard about him, and I kind of looked him up and checked him out and seen what was happening. And William and him and Mark released their CD, and it went very well. And I was very happy for them, of course, and very pleased on how things were going. And I said, okay, well, I want to follow that trend because that sounds good. It feels good. So that's what I did. So once I finished the recording, I sent it to Odradek, and, we went through the process. And then eventually they sent me a yes on the project, and we've been going with it ever since. It's a great platform because I feel like it's good to start overseas, start out of the country, start in Europe, in Italy, and wherever it is besides the United States, and let it work its way back. So I thought it was a great strategy. Time will tell whether it works or not. And, right now they accepted it, and they actually asked me to be on the committee. So now I'll be receiving music from other artists, listening to it. And
that's really a unique process. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very different. But again, I use that word effective, and it worked for me. And hopefully when other people hear about it and musicians want to send their stuff out there, send it to Odradek, and promising it will work for them as well.
Seems like a good fit. All the records they've done so far in jazz have something a little unique about them. And that made it really interesting to me. So I'm going to keep my ear on their label. And hopefully that becomes fruitful in the future.
We should mention, by the way, the classical album we did was Iberian Impressions by Paulo Oliveira on Odradek Records. And that was a really good record, too.
All right, let's jump into this recording. And I think you really did a good job picking the first track because it makes that first impression. And you had me right away because the horns come right in and they slam you with those big horn lines. So I'm listening to that and getting in the groove. And then at the end of that section, the meter changes up, but you also pull the beat out at the end of that line. So that had me hooked, like, okay, there's going to be a lot of rhythmic things that are interesting here. And then the horns come back for that final blast. And I thought that was just really cool. Let's play a little bit of that, and then you can tell us about how this tune got started.
Sure.
That is very cool.
I like the end of the section too, before the drum fill. That was great.
That's cool. Yeah. Well, first of all, Never Say Never. The title came to me because it was one of those things where I felt like I would never get this CD done. And like I said, it was long overdue, and that could have been the title track of this whole CD, Long Overdue. Because it was long overdue, and I wanted to have a message, which each title that I've written for each song has a certain message to it. And the message for this song is no matter what you're going through, no matter what you're doing, no matter how hard it may seem, if you think you're not going to get there, always remember, never say never, because if you stay relentless to your pursuit and you keep on trying, you will get there. So don't ever say never, because you will get there if you really try hard enough and believe in yourself and have faith. It will happen for you. And that's the message that I try to present in this particular song. That's why I named it Never Say Never. Now, incidentally, Never Say Never, at first, we're going to use that for the title of the CD. But things change, your ideas kind of fluctuate a little bit. But I knew that horn part in the beginning would catch you because it was powerful. For me as a writer, I always say beginning, the middle, and the end is three of the most important parts of a song, because when you're listening to the beginning of a song, if it catch you, boom, you're going to pay attention. Now you can kind of, eating dinner, you kind of get lost in the mix in the middle. And before the middle, then when you get to the middle, you want to do something that's going to catch them again. And then of course at the end, it's always the last thing that they hear. So you want to make sure that the ending has something substantial that they will remember as well. And also when I was writing, I was like, okay, well, most tunes you hear is always the sax player, play the trumpet player. The horn's always up front, and then you might get a piano solo and a bass solo. Let's change this whole thing up. This is that unorthodox part of me. Let's let William play first. Let William do his solo first. Let's feature piano first before the horns get in. So that's why William came in first, because I like that would just change it up a little bit, especially after that big hit. Ba-da-doo-da. Just let it mellow out a minute and let William do his thing. Even in that 3/4 section, when I was listening to it in the beginning, it was like I held it for 4, but it was in 4/4 time. And it was like, that is just too long for me to hold them notes. Let's change it. Let's put it in 3. Let's let it swing a little bit in a different direction to kind of give it some excitement or interest or whatever, that will give people a second listen. Oh, what you say? That's why I pretty much put that 3 in there. And of course, when we get to the end, before we get to the solo section, them horns pop back in again. That actually wasn't written. I decided to do that during one of the practices we had. And I'm like, you know what, fellas, let's put that right back before the solo section starts to give it another burst of energy.
It's like a punch before the bell in boxing. That got my attention.
Yeah, so that wasn't a written thing. That was something that I decided to add in there, during one of the rehearsals. So that was, kind of improvised that. And of course, William came in and did his thing. And I just had a student before, we came on tonight, and I was explaining to him, the importance of the accompaniment. I am accompanying William. I am not playing over top of William. I want William to do what he does, and I want to do things in the back of him to enhance what he's doing. And that was my whole thought process when he was doing his solo, is to kind of let him know, hey, man, I hear you. I'm listening to you. So I'm going to do some of the things you do and feed off you, because it's great when musicians know that the rest of the band is listening to him, and I'm not in my own world. Dave not in his own world. We are all over the place. We actually listen to what each other doing, and that makes the whomever solo on at that particular time feel appreciated, because we listening, we got you. And so that's the feel that I want to have when William was solo. And then, of course, who was that? Sensei came and did his thing. Oh, no, Frankie came in and blew his solo, and then Sensei followed with his solo. And then we kind of went through the top of it again and took it out with the hard hits on the toms. William kind of tinkered it out of there. So, but yeah, that's the whole song in a nutshell, where never say never. Whatever you do, never say never. Because if you keep going and you keep pushing and you keep praying, all things are possible.
Well, it definitely made a first impression with that one. Yeah, that was a strong opening.
I just want to give these guys credit. William Knowles on the piano. He's also the arranger on this album.
Yes. I always tell William, man, you You are the constant professional, man. You're a musical. I always tell him, you are a musical genius. And he really did well with arranging the music. So once I got it to a certain point of my ability, I handed over to him and let him do what he does. And he really did a great job with him. Me and William, man, we've been performing together from nightclubs to theater for over 30 years. And, you know, we know what each other thinking and we know what each other want to do. And we just pretty much took it upon ourselves to do what we thought. I did what he thought what he would do, and he did what I thought he would do, if that makes sense by saying that.
No,
right.
that's perfect, really.
You got to really trust someone to hand them your music and believe they're going to take it in the right direction. And you have to have that mental link, yeah.
And then, of course, Frankie and Reginald, you know, they did a phenomenal job on the solos, very exciting, very powerful. And, you know, in their own rights, I feel like I want to always allow the musicians to have their freedom and express themselves in their own way. You know, and you do what you do, man. And as long as we feel what you're doing, and that's the thing, what I always say as far as this whole CD is concerned, I want people to feel this music. I don't necessarily need you to always hear it, but if you hear it and you don't feel it,
right,
I'm not quite getting or accomplishing what I wanted to accomplish. I want you to feel and understand what this music is all about. So when you think of Never Say Never, and you think about the messages I'm trying to portray to you as far as what the title is, and then you listen to the music, if you can feel where this music is going and with it, and you allow it to take you to a place that maybe you're not when the time that you started it, but when you finish it, you at a different place, then that means it is actually taking you to another dimension of where you were in the beginning. And that's because you feel what we're doing versus hearing everything that we do.
Right. The second tune on the recording, Inner Thoughts, I felt the feature of this is the change-ups. You got the swing and Latin change back and forth, you know, comes back from like Art Blakey days. And I feel that really feeds the soloist. When you come out of the Latin back into the swing, it really sort of pushes the soloists to let loose with different ideas. And that was a pretty interesting one. But the tune that really surprised me in the direction it went is the third track, Uncharted Soul. Because it starts out with this kind of cute, cool jazz-like theme, and then, whoa, it goes somewhere completely different. Let's take a listen to that, and I want you to tell me where this idea came from. So we start out with that cool swing and it's all happy, and then we're in like minor, and we got this kind of reggae beat, and then those brass fanfares. What's going on there, Tony?
I don't know, man. So that's just how I felt at the time. So, okay, so we came in with the jazz thing, the bebop little cool jazz thing happened up top. Then we went to this 12/8 thing. That was one of those things where, you know, I've been studying a lot of Afro-Cuban music, and that was kind of an Afro-Cuban kind of sort of feel that I wanted to implement. Now, when I was writing this song, I actually started it off in the bridge. The bridge was the first thing that I found in this song versus the beginning leading up to the bridge. Now, when we got to maybe section C, B, and William started comping, the way he was comping did give it that reggae feel, which was really cool. Now, it wasn't actually written that way, but when you have guys like William and the rest of the guys, Dave and everybody else, you give them the freedom to do what they do. And the way that he played it and where he put it was on point. And then we had Michael Fisher, who came in on the first solo and did his thing. And then, of course, we swung it on top, and then we came back in with the 12/8 on next to Reginald with the same vibe, and Frankie at the end. And then when we ended it, we didn't come back in with the head of the tune. We came back in on the 12/8 thing and took it on out. That's why this song is called Uncharted Soul. Because when I was in the studio writing this stuff, I had no idea of where I was going. In fact, I was stuck. And I realized, I said to myself, Tony, you're going to have to dig within your soul, man, in order to find something that's going to work. You're going to have to dig into that part of your soul that maybe have never been digged in or dwelled into before, because, it gets difficult after a while to write music and to figure things out and to come and be creative. And when I started digging deep within myself, these are the things that were coming out. These are the things that were, the phrases and the harmonies and all of those other things that was coming out at the time. So I really did have to dig into my uncharted part of my soul, a part of my soul that hasn't been dwelled into before, to come up with these ideas. So when you ask me, how did I do it? I don't know. I really don't. It happened, in a time when I was writing the music that it just flowed, the juices flowed in that direction. So I went with it. Now I didn't do it all in one night. I perhaps came back on certain parts of it, but Uncharted Soul was one of the songs that I actually wrote that I actually finished it pretty much in a couple of days, where some of the songs it may took me 2 or 3 days, 4 days, however how long, but I just pretty much played how I felt, and this is how it came out. I like to be funky at times. I like the 12/8 thing going on, and, of course we want to swing. So that's pretty much it.
That was cool. Something everybody can relate to, chicken and hot sauce. And I didn't play this one when we did the episode, and I know Mike liked it a lot.
I liked it a lot because I mentioned it at the end, yeah.
And let's check out how this gets going. I think I described that. To me, it reminds me of New Orleans, that
the
snare
drum
beat there. Yeah, it's a really happy sound, and again, a completely different rhythmic feel than what we've heard so far.
Yes, sir, absolutely. So the story of this song is me and my boy, Freddie Calderon, who's one of my, a very good friend of mine, and he's he's always with me. He does a lot of the recordings for me. He's a recording engineer. In fact, he engineered He Is Love, and he also was the recording engineer on this project. So once in a while, we would get together, Freddie and myself, and I would call him over to do a session for me. And after the session, you got to feed the musicians. Musicians, they love to eat, so you have to have some food. So I would always go get a couple of rotisserie chickens, because it's cheap. And everybody liked chicken. It tastes like chicken. So, And he would always ask for hot sauce. So the running joke was, hey, Tony, can I get some hot sauce with this chicken? And we would always do that. So one day, me and my son was sitting down eating some rotisserie chicken, and he was like, "Hey, Dad," his voice done got all deep now that he's become a teenager. "Hey, Dad, can you pass me that hot sauce?" And we kicking it and we laughing and stuff and having a good time. I'm like, you know what, Terrell? I'm going to write a song about chicken and hot sauce. And he like, really, Dad, for real? I'm like, yeah. And then I started just singing, da 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 da. I'm just laughing around the kitchen and having a good time and didn't think twice about it. And then it just came out. And what did I do? Ran straight to my phone and recorded it, my voice. And as soon as I got a chance, I ran upstairs and started playing it, on piano, find the notes, play it. Then I had to decide, what beat would go good with this. So when I thought about it, I was like, it's hot, it's chicken, spicy. Let's do the New Orleans style. Gumbo is spicy, it's hot, fun. And that's how I came up with that specific groove. Now, when you listen to, I think that's section C, you get into the hits. Bop, da, ba, bop, da, ba, bop. That's that big band thing that I kind of felt, once in a while that I wanted to kind of implement into some of the songs. So that's what I did with that part of the song. Now, when we go back to the beginning and we have Dave solo on top, that's another one of those times where I was like, okay, well, let's change it up. Let's let the bass player have a solo in front versus everybody else. Kind of switch it up a little bit. So Dave did his thing. And of course, we had Michael come and do his thing with the stop time, and then we swing it and then to come back into the section with the regular groove. And this went on through the whole entire song, and where, I decided to take a little bit, give me a little bit of it. If you notice on this whole project, I didn't really take a lot of solos because I didn't want this music to be about me and just playing drums all through. I wanted it to be about the group, and people don't necessarily, unless you're a drummer, want to necessarily hear a bunch of drums all through the CD. So I decided not to do a lot of solos, but this one called for it. So, I gave it a little bit on my end. And then, of course, we came back in with the, on top and took it out. And if you notice, at the end of that, I put a little twist on it. And that, at the very end of the song, with the 5 hits we did on the end, that wasn't written in. That was something I decided to do in the studio. That was just one of those moments when I'm saying, hey, y'all, let's do this. Let's do these hits at the end. And I do the Three Stooges little thing, ba-ba-boo-da-bee-da, at the end. And because actually this song, I was thinking was going to be at the end of the entire CD to say, that's all, folks. But it wasn't, whatever.
Right. Yeah, I noticed that final horn line. I wasn't expecting it. And okay. Yeah, nice tag on the end.
That was, of course, Dave up top, Michael Thomas on trumpet. Then we had Frankie. Then we did Reginald at the end. I didn't really have a lot of time to put William in the middle of that because I didn't want the songs to be too long. I was kind of fighting towards how long did each song need to be for time purposes. So it was sometimes I had to not, okay, well, we won't have a piano solo on this one, or we might not have a trumpet solo, just a time constraint. So yeah, so that's how we came up with that song. It's just funny how that whole thing just came from me and Ferdy just eating chicken with some hot sauce on.
Great inspiration.
I just want to clarify too, Dave Marsh on bass and Frankie Addison, your brother, on soprano and tenor saxophone, right?
Yes.
I think one of the interesting things of the recording is all the horn players have really different, unique personalities that comes out in their playing. And so, you got 2 different trumpet players, and Reginald Cinchi's trombone. He's from the Caribbean, right?
Yes.
So you can get that kind of rhythmic sense of the Caribbean rhythms in his lines. And he likes to do a lot of rhythmic tricks. And sometimes he builds the tension with some interesting harmonies. And I've thought, it's an interesting trombone player here.
Yeah, that rhythm too. That reminded me of a lot of Caribbean dance music.
Mm.
Yeah, all of these guys are, band leaders, and they're all right. All of them have their own groups, and, they play around the city, and all of them have recordings out. I just was very fortunate to be able to get them all on the CD to do the project for me. But yeah, all of them have recordings out. All of them are band leaders. All of them are music educators. So they're pros, and they know exactly what they're doing. And it was fun to work with them. I was very fortunate to have the opportunity.
Let's pick two more since we're going long, but it's so much fun.
That's fine, yeah.
Your Spot to Shine, you've got a lot of cool fills. At the end of that tune, you get to open up a bit. But on the title track 5, Relentless Pursuit, this is all you firing away at the beginning. So let's check this out. And what I really like here, I mentioned this when we talked about it, is the foreshadowing of the horn things that come in. You get that rhythm set up, and then we hear the horns do it. And then you get this really it reminded me of James Bond or something, that kind of ominous bass line, like things are getting dangerous here. And I just thought this was a lot of fun. Let's take a listen to it. Yeah, then things get a little bit crazy for a while there with the horns. When those piano chords come in, I'm like, oh, okay, this is fun.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, so I decided to get a little bit up top, just take a little bit. So the licks that I did after the solo coming into where the horns came in with, that's actually a Max Roach lick. One of my favorite licks is, I call it skibba-da-bop. It's like skibba-da-bop, 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 boom, right. Skibba-da-bop, boom, kick, kick. But I slowed it down a little bit to make it fit what we were doing. So that's one of those famous one of my favorite Max licks. So of course we did that, and the horns came in on the top of that. Now, entering into that section where it's crazy, that's exactly what I was trying to implement in there, because I wanted people to feel how crazy it can get, or how it can be, when you're pursuing something. Like you could be pursuing something and everything is fine, and you moving and you grooving and you moving fast and you feeling good about it. Then all of a sudden things get crazy, things get shaky, things get complicated and things don't quite work out the way you want. It just gets hectic and all this craziness is going around you. And that's what I wanted to portray in this song. That's why I put that section there, because it happens sometimes when you're in pursuit of something, things just get crazy and hectic, and it just gets wild and messy.
Right.
And then, but at the same time, it all kind of clears up and you get back on track. And that's what we did in the song. We get back on track to where we were until then we move on to the solo sections. Of course, Frankie and Reginald and William does their things. Then we have Michael Fishu at the end and doing that Latin part where he comes in and clears the air of everything. However, at the total end, we go right back into those drum hits with the horns to say, hey, it's not over. That journey is over. But being relentless means you have to do the same thing over again for your next journey. So that was the whole process of my way of thinking. Of course, and then, you go from the swing to the Latin, swing to the Latin, swing to the Latin. You kind of change it up a little bit, make it exciting, make it interesting. My whole thought process through these songs were not to make it overcomplicated, in a sense where I wanted to make it interesting enough for the hardcore jazz listeners to be able to listen and enjoy and appreciate it. But you may have the casual jazz listeners who don't really, get into this type of music. When they hear certain songs on the CD, they can sit down and enjoy and listen to it because it's not overwhelming to them, no matter what your age or anything like that. So if you got young people listening to it, hey, they can get into it because it's not like, too slow where it's like they feel, oh, jazz is for old people, but it's not too complicated. Well, I don't understand it. It's too much. So I wanted to kind of even the playing field where it could be a little bit of both for both sides.
Yeah, you got a good balance in there. One, all the tunes are unique, but they all take you on a little journey. You know, you listen along and, ooh, wasn't expecting that. Like plot twists in your movie or something. There's enough new things that happen that I think even people who, you know, oh, I don't know about jazz, or you won't think it's complicated. You'll just find that it's surprising and new things are happening if you sit down and listen through it. So I don't think that's a real appealing quality.
Yeah, I'm not a complicated person, so I didn't want to make the music what I wasn't.
I want to ask, this is also the title of the album, Relentless Pursuit, and you said the title sort of had a message. What would you say the title's message is?
Always pursue relentlessly whatever it is that you're pursuing. Whatever it is that you're trying to go, whether it's education, love, God, whatever your goals are. When you think about what we all went through during the George Floyd, Breonna Taylor situation, right, the deaths, and you know how people got together and really pursued and marched on for equality and equal rights and justice for all. You know, I haven't forgot about Trayvon either. You know, and it's something that we all need to do or should do whenever we're pursuing something. Nothing's too big and nothing's too small to be relentless in your pursuit. So if you stay true, never say never, get into your inner thoughts, let your uncharted part of your soul dwell in you. You know, you can feel that transformation. And when you get to that new horizon, you know, the cool breeze that you will feel when you get to the top of that mountain, you know, at the end of the day, just be relentless. And no matter what you're pursuing, and if you do, 10 times out of 10, you will get there. Just be relentless in whatever it is you're pursuing. And that's the message I want to portray to the people out there who are listening and may hear it, or because I'm trying to, my goal is to let there be a message in the music, but also a music in the message. So it's a little bit of both. So these titles are more than just titles, just because it sounds good or just because it may be hip. It's not even any of that. It's because I'm trying to spread a message to whomever listens that this is what's up. This is what we do. This is what we need to. This is what needs to be done in order to be successful and happy in life and spread love and joy and all the other things that we all, you know, as a people want in life. But just be relentless for it and believe that it can happen, and it will.
Great positive message. Here's one I think I didn't play when we discussed the album, but it's interesting. I went back and listened to everything again last night. The Journey, another good title. When I was listening to this, I kind of highlighted what I wrote, that the groove in this tune evolves. It goes from Latin, and gradually you work it up into more of a rock kind of heavier beat. Then it goes back, and as each soloist comes on, you kind of transform that. So the beat is taking a little journey. That was my impression as this tune got started. Let's take a little listen to the beginning of this. Nice horn lines there. You're really driving that along once it settles in to that groove. That's pretty cool groove.
I don't remember actually for what numbers that song was that I had written. I can't keep up with which one I wrote first or the second. I don't even remember now. You know, it's all a blur. But so we go into the hard click bossa, into the more of the rock. I believe the rock feel. Now when we get to the other section, it's more of I was trying to portray more of a hip hop type of feel. Mm-hmm. That's one of my dentist things, where I was trying to keep that funky hip hop type of thing happening before we go back to the top of the song, where we go back to the bossa. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. For each soloist, I wanted to do something different. And that's what I try to do with each of the songs that I played. I wanted to do something different with each soloist where it wouldn't sound the same, because I wanted to capture each individual, with their own voice, who's doing something different. And I wanted to be different along with them. So I try to get into their world instead of being in my own. I wanted to get into their world and where they were going and what they were trying to say to whomever may listen, to enhance what they were doing. So yeah, for each individual solos, I try to do something completely different according to what they were doing. So I was basically following them. I wasn't trying to lead them or persuade them. I was basically, okay, you take me where you want to go, and I'm going to go with you. That's why each soloist, each beat that I played, even though I kept the form of the tunes, in some portions of it, it was a different or completely different feel, because all of the guys are, individuals, and I wanted to kind of portray that. And of course, after each solo, and then we went to the end, and I got a little bit of fanfare at the end. I did a little, gave me some, I don't know, if it fours, ace, whatever it was. And of course, then we had Reginald come at the end when we just vamped it out, and allowed him to do his thing all over again, and play through that, which was nice and funky and hard. And, we bashed it out at the end and finished it up. So, Frankie, Michael, Thomas, and Reggie did great solos on those songs, and I was very well pleased with them. And The Journey, that song is probably the longest, if I'm not mistaken, the longest song on the CD, because it was a journey, and that's the journey, and that's what I was trying to portray, it being a journey. They're short journeys, but most journeys are long and different and fast and changeable and hard and soft, and you get so many different elements when you're in a journey. Actually, here we go again. The Journey, I was kind of fighting, maybe that should be the title track. It was very difficult to decide at the end of which one would be, because I wanted to, the journey, it starts at the beginning. But that's okay, because it's still a journey, and I wanted to take people on the journey. So I hope when people listen to it, they allow themselves to get into the music, allow themselves to get into this song, and let this song take them on the journey. Don't think about it, just feel it. I want you to feel what I'm doing, feel what the band is doing, feel what we're trying to say to you. When you go on your journey in this song, just let it take you wherever it's going to take you. But just remember, at the end of that journey, it's going to be great, because whatever you're striving for in your journey, if you're relentless, then you will get there. So,
all right, one more. The last tune. I thought this was cool breeze, because here we don't hear shuffle enough these days, But if you listen back to Art Blakey, he always had a shuffle going on a record. But here it's kind of like a dictionary of grooves. You got the shuffle, you got some fills, then it's swinging, then it's shuffle, and then out of the blue, that kind of double time Latin feel comes in. I was like, oh man, all kinds of stuff is happening in this tune right from the beginning. So let's check out how this one gets going. Sorry, Frankie. We can listen to that all day.
Yeah, that was cool. That was my rendition of the Blakey Shuffle. Nowhere near the master, of course, but I did my best on that particular tune at that particular time, giving homage to Art Blakey. That song was actually swung. It was written as a swing tune. But when I was in the studio, I don't know, in the middle of the night, who knows what time it was, could have been 2 or 3 in the morning, I don't know. I started playing with it, I'm like, man, I don't have a shuffle on this whole CD. Maybe it'd be great to do this tune in a shuffle. It just feels right. Here we go again. What it feels good. It just felt right to do a shuffle. And so I changed it and decided to shuffle it instead of doing a straight swing on it. Then of course we go into the hits. That's me again with the love of big band, trying to do some hits. Now I'm not saying it is big band, but the hits emulate for me the big band feel, because we got those big hits, which led us into straight in swinging. That's where the cool breeze comes. That's where that's when it all opens up when we start swinging, and you can feel that breeze right there. You just allow yourself just to feel that breeze once it starts swinging. That's that air coming in, that breeze, baby. And then going to the low Latin thing.
That really lifts it.
It changed it up a little bit. It just felt like it needed to be there. I needed something different. It just felt right. It felt good. And the time, it didn't change the timing as far as the tempos or anything of that nature. So I thought that was great. Of course, we ended each solo with that feel.
Yeah, it makes a nice transition.
And then we just basically drove with the shuffle through all of the solo sections. And, everybody got some of that. Michael Thomas, that Reginald Centre, and then Frankie, then Michael. Then William got some of that, and Dave finished it off, and then we just came back in with the top and the hits and ended it with the Latin feel on the end, let William do his thing, and finished up the CD, finished up the song with power and, excitement, and there we are.
We listened to a lot of music. So far, we're up to, 760, I think, recordings.
Albums?
We got to listen to so much. So one of the things that stuck in my mind from having to listen to so much new music is which recordings make us want to go back and hear them again. What's that quality about a recording that makes you want to rediscover it? And I think it's a kind of recording where you can find something new every time you listen to it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I think the unorthodox nature, there's a lot of things you're not ready for the first time you listen here, even though they all flow together. And then when I sat down and listened to it again last night, I found new things again. Oh, I didn't catch that the first time. Oh, yeah, listen to that solo here. I didn't realize, the beats were changing under there. So I think you've got that quality built in. It's a real rewarding recording that you can go back and listen again and again and find something new each time. And not every, recording we listen to is like that, but yours definitely has that built into it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That was the idea, to make it interesting, exciting, interchangeable. At the same time, I wanted it to be trying to portray, flexibility, where it's not, like I keep using the word overcomplicated, but at the same time entertaining, and at the same time interesting. So I hope that people find that when they listen to the CD, and I hope that they find when they listen to the CD and absolutely when they read the titles of each song, that they can kind of grasp what message I'm trying to portray to them in the music. It's not about me. It's not about, how great I am as a musician or a writer or anything else. It's about how I can make people feel. What can I do to bring joy to people, not only the jazz world, but just in general? You don't have to be a jazz listener to enjoy jazz. And if I can accomplish that, then I think that my goal was met. So yeah, right now we're going to continue to promote the CD, and we're going to continue to promote the message. Right now, I just pray that is what's going to happen with this particular project.
Amen to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hope you get a big audience for this, because it's a lot of fun. Now you've got your music documented. It's recorded, so it's there forever. And I think you come through as the obvious leader. You can tell that the drums are in charge, but you were really generous. It's just a really well-rounded recording. It's amazing you got so much together into, your first jazz recording. Now this is done. What's next? What do you want to tackle next? Where are we going from here?
That is a great question.
Yeah.
So for me, I have probably tons, 20 maybe, gospel praise and worship tunes that I haven't recorded yet. So I'm kind of leaning towards that, because I love jazz, and I love all kinds of music, all styles of music, but it's nothing like praise and worship music. It's nothing like that music, because that allows me not to be me. it's not about me when I'm playing this music. It's about God and giving him glory. And that is so important to me, because without him, none of this would be possible anyway. So I'm kind of leaning towards that. However, if I do get a demand for more of the jazz, and I will have no problem with doing that as well. In fact, I'm kind of messing around writing some stuff now, and just seeing how things feel. Right now, I want to promote the CD and do some performances. I have performances coming up in November at a couple of the venues here in D.C. Westminster Church in Northwest D.C. There's a Presbyterian church, but it's cool because they have jazz every Friday night, and they've been doing this for over 20 years. So they're allowing me to have the floor on November 10th to promote the CD and do a CD release. And then also I'm having a performance at Blues Alley in Georgetown on November 20th to promote the CD. So I am going to push this as best I can and just go out here and do some gigs, man. It's fun. It's good to be able to do, performances now that the pandemic is over with. We get to do some nightclub gigs, weddings, and all the receptions and things of the nature, private parties, what have you. So as far as recording, we're going to see how it goes. I have a lot of music that I want to get out, whether it's jazz or gospel or maybe R&B. I grew up listening to it all, so I love it all. So we're going to see. I won't make any predictions right now. Just leave it up to the Lord and see where he leads me, and wherever he leads me to go, then that's where I'm going.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
This is still fresh, this recording, so I hope we can help get some new ears to it, and we'll see where it goes. Definitely, whatever you do next, we'll be looking out for it.
Yeah, let us know, actually.
We wish you the best of luck with success for this one.
Thanks.
Hopefully, you can get, all that kind of music that you like. I hope you get another gospel-oriented recording, but I'm really looking forward to whatever ideas you put together for jazz in the future.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate the time you gentlemen have given me. Y'all have been nothing but great for this interview. You can still tell I'm kind of nervous. I've been nervous since we first started. So I appreciate it, man. Y'all getting me through it and allow me to use this platform to put my music out. And I pray that God bless you both with your endeavors on your podcast. And I would definitely be telling people about it, because it's a great thing. It's something that everybody should be listening to. So I'm going to make sure that I do my part so people can definitely tune you guys in.
Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, thanks. Really appreciate that. All right, everyone, if you haven't heard it yet, you got to check this recording out. Odradek Records, Tony Addison's Relentless Pursuit. It's in our playlist. You can find it on all the major streaming platforms. Amazon's got the CD. Listen to it again and again. It's that kind of recording, and I think you want to have it in your collection. So thanks again, Tony. We're looking forward to big things in the future. We've had a great time today, and we wish you all the success.
Thank you. Appreciate it.